Quick summary of basic automation. So I've got one track here and I want to change its volume automation, let's say. So I click on the show hide automation. This doesn't turn automation on and off, but it just means that it's visible to me. And as soon as it's visible, I can't, oh, do you know what, I can move the regions, but it becomes a little bit more difficult to manipulate regions. So it's best to always have it off, except when you want to see the automation. Then check that the parameter you want to automate is ticked here, and that's the one that's visible. If I double click, I can create a node, or I can single click on the line, or I can single click and drag ones. If I select a few automation points at once, I don't need to make a box around the automation, for example, to then move it somewhere else. I can just click and drag a box and just drag it through where the points are in this axis. I don't have to drag it all the way around the dots, if that makes sense. I can just click and drag through there, which is quite useful. I can hold down Alt while I'm doing this, or the Option key, and copy that automation. And notice if a node goes through another node, it can delete it. So to get it really close together, you've got to really zoom in. To get this even steeper, you've got to zoom in even closer. And it's a bit tricky, actually. There are various commands to do this automatically. Maybe I'll cover that in a different video. So this now automates the volume, which is this slider here, this fader. And you can see it work. If I just increase this, you can see it at work. Very simple. Now I can change what parameter I'm automating by clicking in this this dialog here and changing it to something else, and I'm able to automate anything to do with the track and anything to do with any of the plugins that are being used on that track. So into smart controls are the most obvious things to change, but also anything to do with the instrument, anything to do with any of the compressor, chorus, or the channel EQ, which are the three plugins that I'm having here. Let's change the pan. Pan is in main because it's one of the main controls about this, about any track whatsoever. In pan, I want to do absolute, and then I can change the panning. So again, I double click, and it will change the panning selection. As you can see, as you play through, it makes the changes here to do those automation changes. It would be quite useful if I could see pan and volume at the same time, and to do that, I click on this disclosure arrow here, and it displays both lanes at once. Now, if I close automation again, and if I open it back up, it doesn't show both lanes at once. I've still got to click on this one to display it all, so that your tracks area doesn't get full of automation. I can close that disclosure arrow essentially there. I can add other parameters into these lanes. Oh, maybe I can put a mute. Some automation is totally on or totally off. So obviously the volume is continuous between this amount and this amount. Mute is either on or off. So if I click here, I can have it this or here. So presumably that's muted and that's not muted. So if I click that there and it's either on or off and muted, I can still have volume automation, but it's gone until I create some other automation that unmutes it. It's broadly the same with pedaling. In MIDI, that's better done in MIDI, except that some pedals can produce a pedaling amount that's not quite wholly done, because pianos can respond to sort of half pedaling and things like that. But some things like bypassing effects, for example, go into the compressor. Oh, is that the right thing to do? No, I think it's in main. For every insert you can bypass it. So if I want to bypass the chorus, I want to make a bit of it that's not affected by this chorus modulation, I can then bypass it in certain effects. For example, it's bypassed then, and then I can unbypass it. Let's do that. Then watch what happens to the chorus plugin over here. Or let's tell you what, let's even open it up. Then we can see what happens. So there's the chorus. There it is in the inspector. And if I press play, you can see we get to there, and it turns off, and then it turns back on again. So we can automate those bypasses. So even though it's affecting chorus, that bypass is actually in the main area of that menu, which is there, whereas all the things to do with chorus are actually there. So I could change all of the parameters of chorus within there. And of course, if it's a very complicated plugin, or like one with a channel EQ with lots and lots of parameters, then they're all just in a list. Occasionally they're in separate lists, like you can see in Compressor. In Sidechain Filter, there's a kind of sub-list. And in synths like, I don't know, Alchemy, it goes into a massive chain, a big tree of parameters. So actually that's covered the basics and some more advanced techniques. It's all quite simple. Remember, this does not turn automation on and off. If you want to turn this automation completely off, you can do this. You can do this, he says, and click that one off, and then it's not happening. So let's do this disclosure arrow so you can see what's happening. For example, volume there is turned off. Let's not automate it, muting that automation turn off, and it changes the colour of the lane here. If I turn volume back on again, you can see that that automation is now being red. I'll prove it to you. Now it's being red, Now it's not. No changes to the volume are being made. All the other automation is going, however. So you can turn individual automation on and off using those buttons, which are a bit sort of hidden away, I suppose. That's not exactly as obvious as I would like it. This just shows or hides it. Much like the flex pitch and flex time dialogues here, this doesn't turn flex on and off, but it shows it there or not, and it's making no effect on that since this is a MIDI track. It would have a flex marker in the track header if we had an audio track, for example here, and we'll deal with flex in another video.